Good morning. I'm Nikki Farler. I'm from Robinson Elementary in Perry County. I'm an LBD teacher who teaches kindergarten through 8th grade. My focus though are students with sensory needs. I have students that are mainstreamed on the autism spectrum that are nonverbal. I have students that have specified and diagnosed behavioral concerns. I also have students, your run-of-the-mill ADHD kids who just need a little help to get through the day. So I have all those kids, and our focus this year was keeping them in the classroom as much as possible. More often than not, our kids with sensory issues, or especially our spectrum kids, get sent to the resource room to satisfy those sensory needs. They've had it with the classroom, and we just send them to the resource setting, and then they're gone from their peers, which to me and the rest of our team at my school, that doesn't satisfy their IEP goals towards behavior and learning how to be among their peers. So we used the $1,000 for a two-pronged setting. We used some of the money to do sensory toolkits for K through 8 that were specifically in their reading and math classrooms, because that's our focus. And we had one set that traveled with the group that had the most sensory needs. We also did, because of the success of this, we did one for preschool, because preschool is beginning to transition to kindergarten, so we also added that as a part of it as well. Also, the other part of this was we did a sensory reading center, a reading area for our kids on the spectrum and our kids with sensory needs. We saw that their AR and their just independent reading has not been of that of the rest of their peers. So we used some of this to create a sensory reading area that was closer to their classrooms, that eliminated travel time, because most of my kids love to go to the reading center in the resource room because it takes about 10 minutes to get down there. So you go see the resource officer, you go see the cafeteria, you don't do what you're supposed to be doing. So we made it closer to their classroom. Why did we do this? Oftentimes students, like I said, with a disorder, with some sort of sensory issue, they just play it off and we use it as an excuse to get them out of our classroom. That's the one with the sensory meltdown. He has a tantrum, he's got to go. But through this grant, we've been able to help our kids understand what their triggers are and how to alleviate those with our toolkits. There's the sensory reading area. We got 3 things of sensory seating. The pea in the pod is the favorite. They love it. But also, we did a crash pad that also had rough texture to it. That's also helped a lot of our kids on the spectrum. And the mushy cushies are their favorite. They take them back to their classrooms a lot of the time. Now, the sensory toolkits, if you want to see it, we have them up here. Like I said, there were 4 that traveled throughout the school, and then there was one for preschool. Within the sensory kits, we initially used this to help our kids isolate the feelings that they were feeling and use the fidget or sensory item that would alleviate these feelings. So most of the time with our sensory kids, it's easier to isolate it if they see it. So if we're mad, we have something that alleviates that need to want to squeeze. If we're antsy, we have things with rougher textures, and they have the pictures here. This was initially in the toolkit to help them decide. They don't use this as much now. When we were implementing it in October and November, this was the go-to device, especially for our younger kids. With our junior high kids, they kind of knew what they wanted because we had already experimented with this before. As we implemented the toolkit, initially in our reading area, we had students that were not completing our AR goals and were not getting the rewards that they desired and that we desired for them. So our students with sensory concerns, as the year went on, as they were using the toolkits and utilizing the reading area, the overall increase was a 40% increase in their reading levels among the group that utilized the toolkits, as well as all of them that utilized the toolkits received their AR rewards in the 4th, in the 3rd, and 4th, and 5th 6 weeks. So these kids that normally were used to sitting in the classroom for the rest of the time actually got to participate with their peers and were able to get awards that they wanted. The Toolkits also made a great impact. The students with sensory needs have been in the classroom 20% more than they normally were. And on average, this means that the students were in the classroom 15 to 18 minutes longer. That's more direct instruction, that's more time with peers, and more time to really work our goals and plans and behavioral goals for these kids. We were able to measure that through a Google Doc. The students did a sensory profile. At least we weren't awesome about it, but at least a couple of times a week at the end of the time when they had used the sensory item, the students would use the drop-down bars to choose the items that they picked, as well as how they felt that it helped them. They used the incredible 5-point scale. We were here, now we were here, to examine how it helped. Also, the big thing that our teachers were concerned about was how does this go from a toy to a tool. So we introduced that with our kids as well. The sensory toolkit expectations, the teachers had them as well as the kids, and they're in the toolkits. So on that Google Doc, they were asked, did you meet the expectations? And the number one expectation is all things in the toolkits are tools, not toys. So once we go from playing to it, showing our friends, throwing it at our kids, that's when it becomes a consequence and becomes a behavioral expectation. So, I think that's it, yes. So I really encourage you to look at the sensory needs for your kids. It's a really great way to incorporate these kids into your classroom and satisfy needs and encourage learning while actually staying in that mainstream class.